Today I am so excited. My guest is Narcisse Green. Narcisse is an educator and a business owner and a mother, and I'm not sure what else you might be doing. She's been in Connecticut for the last 10 years, originally from California, where composting was mandated. And here she has been working tenaciously to get a composting program started at East Lyme High School. And that's how you and I first became acquainted. And I am so excited to have you on the show. There's so much to talk about. The work that you're doing, Narcisse, at the high school. You're a business education teacher, and that is just so important. Financial literacy is something that we've been talking a lot about lately, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so tell me, what are the 4 classes that you teach?
I teach personal finance, which is now required in the state of Connecticut, accounting, business management, and business law.
Wow, and how are these being accepted by the students? Are these, the one is mandatory and the other 3 are all optional?
Yeah, they're electives. Students have an option to do what's called a career concentration at East Lyme High School, and if they want to focus in a specific area like business, then these classes would be what they would want to take. So a lot of the students who are in there are kind of self-motivated to take these courses.
Well, sure, like if you have an understanding of money management, how to invest your money, all that goes into that, and that would be the personal finance class, I would guess.
Correct, yeah, which is now required for the class of 2027 for all of Connecticut to take.
Okay. So there probably are some kids in the class that are highly motivated, so enthusiastic, want to be entrepreneurs one day, look at our billionaires in our society right now and think, I want that, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's other kids that are kind of middle of the road, just there, and taking it in, good students, and then the slackers.
I don't really have very many slackers.
Oh, good news, good news.
Yeah, most of my subject, I think, obviously is very interesting. So most students are inherently interested in what we're talking about in our classes. So we have very good students at East Lyme.
That's terrific. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, and tell me a little bit about the accounting class. Is that just pea counting, bean counting? How does that go?
It is a full-year class. It's the only full-year class that I teach, and we use this program that teaches us how to keep track of a business expenses, looking at like balance sheets and income statements. And then every couple of weeks we do something with Excel where they have a problem in the business and they have to solve it using some data analysis in Excel and using formulas. And then they have to pretend that I'm their boss and they email me as if they were my accountant. And they say, based on XYZ, here's my suggestion for what you should do moving forward with these expenses or whatever. So they're getting as close to that real world experience as possible, and also learning the hard skill of writing a professional email as well as using Excel appropriately.
Nice, wow. And it's just, to me that seems like STEM learning, where it's real life experiences with hypothetical problems and then giving them the opportunity to practice those basic skills and then some soft skills too, the communication piece, the finessing of the emails and those messages that they send to you. That's really terrific.
Yeah, it's a fun class.
That's great. And then the next one is business management. How is that different from the other 2?
So in accounting, you're looking at the numbers of your business, cash flow, what's coming in, what's going out. Hopefully it's more coming in than out.
Right,
and then in business management, it's more about leadership, your practices around managing people, how to deal with difficult problems. We look at a variety of businesses that are functioning really well, and we analyze what is making them function well.
Interesting.
So it's kind of more of like the thought process behind managing, where accounting is more the number side of managing.
Okay, and then the last one is business law. So anything that can happen.
Yeah, we actually do mock trials in that class. So we focus on, civil law would be more kind of the business side. We do talk about criminal law a little bit, but focusing more on civil law, since that could happen in a business, getting sued, things like that. And we have mock trials, and they have a lot of fun pretending to be lawyers.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And then do you have defendants and the whole bit?
Yeah,
right?
We have like witnesses on each side, and we have evidence and the whole 9.
Okay, cool. Very cool. It sounds like a lot of fun. Now tell me about the food composting program. I first heard about it, I think, was it August or September, maybe, 2024. you came to a Board of Ed meeting and pitched your idea, right? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yep.
Okay. And it was a $7,500 amount that you needed to raise. And that seemed like a lofty number at the time.
And it seemed like a very high number for weeks and weeks until all of a sudden we had enough money. I think the campaign ran for 10 weeks. I might have that slightly off, 8 to 10 weeks, I think. And yeah, those first few weeks, it was crickets. Like,
nail biting.
Yeah, I'm like,
of.
okay, this isn't gonna work. This isn't gonna work. And then we were lucky enough to be on the Channel 3 News.
Oh, good.
And that really boosted a lot of items. We had people like you who asked their friends to donate for their birthday or whatever event. And then the funds, it was kind of a snowball. Like once it kind of started going and a lot of people in the community were talking about it, we all of a sudden, we actually ended up raising, I think, $1,000 more than we needed.
Which is fine. And then what does that money go for?
That money pays for the food scrap collection service. So we're partnering with Blue Earth. And Blue Earth provides you with bins that are cleaned and lined with compostable bags. So that way there's no like gross pest issues. And they come and they collect the food scraps and then they bring them to a facility called Quantum where they turn the food scraps into dirt.
So there's a lot of layers to this, a lot of levels of planning and organization. And I'm excited to go. Superintendent Newton is inviting me. Maybe I invited myself, but he said that I could come with another board member to go and look and observe it. And I'm so excited to do that. So I'm trying to imagine what it looks like because I don't really have a clear picture. I'm imagining everybody clears their plate at the end of it, and you don't want kids to put their food scraps into the regular trash like they used to. So tell me, what does it look like?
Right. So students themselves are actually not sorting.
Okay.
We have student volunteers who sort,
Okay.
but the general student population is not sorting.
Okay.
We have East Lyme High School is almost 1,000 kids. I don't know, we're at 8 something right now, 800 and something students at East Lyme. And they have 2 lunch waves, so roughly 450 students at a time for lunch wave 1 and lunch wave 2. And so we have a very large commons and cafeteria area where we have lunch, and there's, like I said, 450 students at a time. So we break that area into 4 groups. So we have 4 different stations where students can go, and there's just a folding table, just a regular folding table that you would bust out at Thanksgiving or something,
Sure.
right, for extra people. And the students just bring their trash and they just set it on the table, and that's all they do. And then behind the table, which is strategically placed against a wall so that people can't get to it, right? So you have table, student volunteer, or a teacher, sometimes both, sometimes one, and then the bins. And so you have 3 bins. So you have 1 bin for recycling cans and bottles that actually goes to the East Lyme marching band. They use all those deposits to fund some activities for them. And then there's another bin for just regular trash. And then there's another bin it's a Blue Earth bin that we use for the food scraps. We also have various items in the cafeteria that are compostable. Some of our trays are compostable, some of the cutlery is compostable. So those we put in that bin.
Nice.
Too. So they just leave it at the table, and then everybody gets a glove at the beginning of the lunch wave, and then students or teachers then physically sort it.
Okay. So there's 4 different tables, 1 or 2 people at each of the tables,
Right.
and the tables are in the 4 corners of the
Of the cafeteria. Essentially.
cafeteria. There was
Commons.
Commons. That was the name that I was looking for, of the Commons area. So, and what is the reaction of the students?
Yeah, it's been really positive. We have students kind of coming up, what are you doing? Like, what is this? And of course, we've given the students a lot of information. We have a wonderful morning show put on by Mr. Place who has students, report news out. It's been in the school newspaper. We started the program in January. So the first semester was educating students on what was going to happen. Of course, fundraising that $7,500 that we had talked about before, as well as we used advisory, so like homeroom, to talk to the students about what was happening. We gave them a Kahoot, which is kind of like a game that they can play to learn some basic facts about just waste so that they could, kind of see what the purpose of why we're doing this. And anyway, so they had a lot of knowledge, but then when it was actually up and running,
You have to see it.
Yeah.
You have to really see it.
It was kind of this abstract, oh, we're going to start composting. Like, okay. And then once it actually started happening, they're like, oh, like, what are you guys doing? What is this? Well, you know, that thing we've been talking about for months. This is it.
Right.
We have a lot of students who just are, come up and say, can I help? It literally takes 30 seconds to tell them how to help. So if any students are watching, please come and ask us if you can help. We would love to just show you really quickly.
And I would think that the more involvement that you have, like with a greater part of the population of students and faculty too, then they would be more encouraged and like I'm saving the earth, right? Basically.
Yeah, actually, huge shout out to our teachers who have been helping. We have, what I did in the first semester of the year, since this started second semester, in the first semester of the year, I figured out all of the teachers who could potentially have lunch duty, right? Where they needed to just supervise during lunch. And then I took that list of people who could have lunch duty and I said, hey, how many of you would be interested in having lunch duty and also helping with something that you're not going to get paid anything extra for, that you totally don't have to do? This is just volunteerism. And it was overwhelming amount of teachers writing back saying, of course, I'll help. Yeah, I'd be happy to help. That
Kudos
was
to them.
Really amazing. Yeah. So
and how long is that list? Can we name everybody?
I don't know if I could name everybody because I'd be so afraid I would accidentally leave someone out.
But kudos to all of them and thank you. We're so grateful.
Yeah, I could give one big kudos to Becky Miller, who is the French teacher at East Lyme High School, and she has helped me with this every step of the way. She's helped with creating slides, communicating with Blue Earth, setting up diagrams.
Nice.
We have it set up because East Lyme is on a rotating schedule where we have A days and B days.
Right.
And, I don't have lunch duty every day. I only have lunch on A days.
Right.
So then Becky has lunch on the B days. So she's in charge of the program on the B days. I'm in charge of the program on the A days. And it's been really wonderful working with her and just having that support. So,
well, thank you, Becky.
Yeah,
That's great.
She's been awesome.
Yeah. So the kids are learning, the teachers are involved. What about parents? Have you gotten any feedback from the home environment and what people might be thinking about this?
We have not. However, I have had students ask me if I compost at home. And I've told them yes.
Yeah.
And so we do have student kind of wheels turning of like, oh, well, there's this new thing happening at school. Can I do that too? Like, what do you mean this turns into dirt? So there's been some like questions. I don't know exactly, what's happening. I can tell you that parents were very involved financially, right? I mean, the $7,500 came largely from parents, which is amazing. But as far as actually being involved or questioning, not so much.
We don't know. Yeah. But we hope it's a life changer, right? We're hoping that people will start to think, why is this important? And start to, right? Do you want to speak to that? Absolutely.
I mean, so the whole reason I started this was because I was listening to this podcast called How to Save a Planet. It's with Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnston, who is actually my superhero. And she's a marine biologist, environmentalist, climate activist. And she had this podcast that I was listening to, and I'm listening to this podcast. And at the end of the podcast, there's all these action items. Like, here's what you can do. And it's a very positive podcast. It's like, yes, we're ruining the world, but here's how you can help.
Right.
And at the end of the podcast, she always had action items. And, I was listening to this podcast and listening to it. And finally, there was this episode about composting. And it was around the same time that California was mandating it. And it was my mom and my aunt and everybody were like, oh, we have to compost now. Like, what? And it was becoming...
I can see some people are a little bit hesitant to do it. I understand that, but I've been composting for a long time, at least 25 years. Yeah.
Well, for a lot of people, it's just a learning curve, right? And once you do it, it's second nature. It's really funny. My compost bin was outside the other day, the one that sits on my kitchen counter. And I forgot to bring it in. And then, 2 hours later, there was just a pile where the compost bin usually goes of like banana peels and other random things, just because we're just so used to putting it in that spot. And then I was like, oh yes, the bin, it needs to come in. It really does become second nature, just like you recycle, right? It becomes just like you recycle. It's just as easy. But anyway, so listening to this podcast, I finally came on this episode about composting. And Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson has this thing about a Venn diagram, and it's a triple Venn diagram. So it's like, what brings you joy? What are you doing, and what can you already do? Or it's something like, I don't know exactly what it is, but it got me thinking, like, what brings me joy? Teaching. What am I already doing? Teaching. And how can I like save the world with what I'm already doing?
I love
Because
that.
the idea is, how can you do something that you already enjoy doing in your current role,
Right.
and make it more impactful? Right. That's her idea. She's like, we're not trying to add extra work. We're trying to embed it in the work that you're already doing.
That makes a lot of
because
sense.
nobody has time to go do extra things.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm composting at home, but if I compost it at school, I'm now touching 1,000 people.
Right.
And that's a way bigger
Well,
deal.
then 1,000 plus their families, plus
Right.
the faculty, all the administration. Yeah.
Right. And so
Huge.
I really did some work with her climate Venn diagram. I suggest looking it up. And
Last name, how's it spelled?
her last name is Johnson. So
Okay.
it's Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson.
Okay.
She just wrote a book called "What If We Get It Right," and it's called Visions of Climate Futures, and it's a wonderful book. I've only halfway through, but it's very good. Anyway, so she's been my inspiration for a lot of this.
Your superhero. You said
Yes.
that already. That's great.
I shook her hand once. It was very great.
Oh, where is she located?
She lives in Maine. Her mom has a farm in upstate New York, and I sound like a stalker. And but she gave a talk at Avery Point, Yukon Avery Point.
Okay.
She was giving a talk about coastal resiliency and coastal communities and kind of what we can do for climate change. And a student's mother reached out to me and she said, hey, Ayanna is coming to this talk. Would you be interested in going? I was like, yes, do you want to come with me?
Oh,
so
nice.
we went together.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. So you got to meet her. And the program was expensive to set up, and you can understand the expense because the trash actually, or the compost, the rubbish, I guess is actually the correct word, it gets hauled off, right? But then what happens to that?
Once Blue Earth collects it, they bring it to a facility called Quantum, and then they turn it into dirt.
And then is there any way to access that dirt? That
So-
healthy composted material?
Right. No, we are allowed a certain amount per year. It's not very much. It's like I can't remember the exact amount, but we're allowed to, as a paying customer, we're allowed to have a small amount of compost per year for free. So when we're doing that, I think we have to be in contract with them and using their services for a certain amount of time before they'll give it to us. And when we have that, then we'll be using that.
Okay, okay, well that's exciting. And then you're saying that this is saving some money on our end at the school as far as facilities. Tell me about that.
Right. So the school pays for trash by the ton. And when you're reducing how much trash is going in the trash, you're paying less per ton because you don't have as much.
And that food is heavy.
The food is very heavy. It is surprisingly heavy. You know, if you have a bin, like just a regular garbage bin.
Like trash, one of those big barrel things?
Yeah, well, like one that you would wheel outside to the curb.
Okay, yeah.
It's
yeah.
the
Those
exact
are pretty,
same thing.
Okay.
They're pretty bit large. That, when it's just halfway full of food scraps, it is so heavy. It is so heavy. And sometimes I'm wheeling it in and I'm like, this thing is so enormously heavy and it's not even full. And so we're saving there. And additionally, we used to have, 450 kids per lunch wave, and they're spread out all over the commons and cafeteria. So the custodians would set up, I think it was like 20 trash cans in that area. So that means 20 trash cans are lined with plastic. And then at the end of the lunch waves, the custodians would take all 20 trash bags, regardless of if they were halfway full or partially full or all the way full, and empty them. And they had to, right? Because if you don't empty them, it's going to stink. And that's all, you have to do it. The problem with that is you're emptying a lot of very huge trash bags that are not being fully utilized.
Right.
With the sorting stations that we have now, there's only 4 trash cans out, one at each of the sorting stations. And that trash can gets completely full and used to its fullest potential before it's then emptied out. which means we're saving money on lining trash bags.
That's huge.
And we're saving plastic consumption as well.
And that's, we don't want to use plastic if we don't have to,
Exactly.
right? Yeah. Oh, so that's really exciting. And then the thing that I heard recently is that most of our trash is taken from Connecticut and not put into landfill here, but actually shipped off to Ohio and Pennsylvania were the two locations I was told about. So this is making it so it's actually being utilized and put into something that's good for the earth and saving the earth basically at some level.
Well, also, one of the reasons why our food isn't as nutritious as it used to be is because our soil isn't as nutritious as it used to be.
Oh, that's interesting.
So by plowing and tilling and doing normal, agricultural practices is actually like destroying the quality of soil. When you can replace that with compost, you're now putting more nutrients into our food. You have to eat 3 times more broccoli today than you did have in 1960 to get the same amount of calcium.
I didn't know that. Oh, wow. And people don't talk about that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. Oh, wow.
Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson.
Oh, okay. I have to look her up. I have to get on her. She'll be my new superhero, too. So that is pretty amazing, all the things that you have going on. Is there anything that you really, some at the state level, there's some legislation as far as composting. Talk to me about that.
Correct. If you're within a certain mile radius of a composting facility, it's now required for certain types of businesses that larger areas that would generate a large amount of food scraps, like a school.
So I would imagine like Pfizer, EB, where they have big cafeterias, hospitals.
Pfizer already does compost.
Okay.
They sort.
Okay.
I was really excited when I went there and I was like, oh, there's a 3-bin system here. And look, the compost one is full. But I don't know if the mileage radius specifically affects Pfizer or Groton. I don't know what municipalities it specifically hits, but I just know that if you live within a certain distance of a composting facility and you generate a certain amount of food scraps, you are required to divert those scraps from the landfill and put them in compost. So it's only natural that legislation will expand,
of course,
to hopefully be the whole state. And then everybody's doing it like they do in all of Sonoma County in California.
Nice. How's your family doing with composting? You said at first there was a little bit of a pushback, like, oh, why do I have to do this? But now they're excited and...
Yeah, they love that they can go get free dirt. I mean, that's the coolest thing.
Right.
My mom really loves to garden, and she was like, oh, I can go get this dirt and it's free. That's one of the greatest things. They're making so much of it with so many people contributing that they just give it away.
Well, and it would be so healthy too. You'll have more nutritious vegetables and fruit, and then more beautiful flowers and healthier trees, everything else. It's a win-win, right? Yeah. And has there been any talk that you're aware of for doing composting at the recycle center or at the trash where the landfill where we take all of our stuff in town?
Oh, I don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. And then I wanted to circle back because you have something that you need to brag about. You have a couple of students who went off to a competition, and you were their mentor to some extent, right?
Yeah, we have a club called DECA. It's essentially an entrepreneurship and marketing club.
Okay.
And since I am the business teacher, I'm the advisor for that club.
DECA is DECCA?
DECA.
And what does that stand for? Do we know?
Distributive
Economic
Educator something of America.
Okay.
I know, that's terrible.
That's okay.
So it's really funny because the people who are in DECA literally never say it. They're just like, oh, it's a marketing and entrepreneurship club.
Okay.
And so they went to the Connecticut State Conference last month, and we took a group of 10 students there, and they all had something they were doing, whether it was a business pitch or a business plan, or some of them had like case studies that they were given, and they had 30 minutes to come up with a response and then pitch it to a judge.
That's amazing.
Yeah, really cool things that you would have to do in real life if that was what you wanted to do.
Juniors, seniors?
So the students who one are sophomores.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
that's fabulous.
Yeah, it's really great. And they came up with a innovation plan, which is essentially a business plan for solar powered vehicles.
Okay.
So you're not plugging in the vehicle, it's just solar powered. And
I've been talking about this for years. Like I could never understand why semi-tractor trailer trucks with all that.
can't have solar panels on them.
Exactly,
I mean, yeah.
exactly. So they did it.
Right. So they won first place at
Congratulations.
for the state of Connecticut.
And what are their names? Let's give them a shout out.
I definitely want to give them a shout
Yeah.
out, but I don't want their parents to be like, "Why is my child's name up?" Or something.
Okay, that's fine.
But
oh,
yes,
but I'm so
we
excited.
definitely should give them a shout out for sure.
Okay, when we can.
They're sophomores and they're fabulous. And they are now going to be competing in the International DECA Conference, which is in Florida.
That is so exciting.
we'll
Are
be
you
going.
going to?
I am going.
You have to supervise them. You have to
Yes.
make sure that
I
they're.
have to go with them.
When is that?
At the end of April.
Oh,
So we'll be
congratulations.
going to Florida, and their parents are coming too, and their
Aw.
parents have been very supportive.
Oh,
so
sweet.
It's really great.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank
yeah.
you.
And maybe someday this will be a patent and it'll be on every vehicle. And
Who knows?
yeah. And you did it. You were there. You
Yeah.
were the one.
Yeah, well, they did it, and I definitely, facilitated their progress.
Oh, that's terrific.
One of the students had previously taken my business management course, and their accumulating, final project is to take everything that we had learned, like mission statement, leadership attributes, all the things that we kind of talk about with business management, and put it in a slide deck for the business of their choice.
Nice.
And the solar powered vehicle was what he did for his project. And now he's expanding on that for the innovation plan for DECA. And now he's bringing it to the competition again. So it's kind of like, is this actually going to happen? Because that would be amazing.
Yeah. That's terrific.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Narcisse. Is there anything else that you want to share before we call a close to our amazing conversation?
We've hit all the points, I think.
Okay,
It was nice
very
to
good.
talk to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And shout out to Supercharge, who has become a sponsor, I've been told recently. So thank you so much, and I'll have a coupon for you when I see you. I guess I'll bring it in on Friday and give one to your French teacher friend.
Awesome.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
again. Good to see you.